so now we're at step 6. We are still with a Florida grade number 1 tree. We're going to look at minor downgrades, and now it takes 2 true statements to reduce the grade from Florida grade number 1 to a Florida number 2 or lower. So what are those parameters? Again, we need 2 true statements. Flush cuts were made when pruning branches from the trunk. A flush cut would leave basically an exposed pruning wound, and the branch collar would have been cut off. I'm really not seeing that here. Or branch stubs, which is the opposite of too short of a cut. It's not long, it's not short enough. I don't see any branch stubs, so that doesn't apply either. Open trunk wounds are evident. Now these have to be greater than 10% of the trunk circumference and or greater than 2 inches high. I've got some scuffs here, but we're not talking about scuffs. We're talking about open trunk wounds where the trunk wood is exposed. Greater than 10% of the crown is necrotic, chlorotic, or damaged by pests. Not seeing that either. The crown is thin and sparsely foliated. That's not really applicable here. Of course, you have to allow for the time of year if you're in the wintertime. There is included bark between the trunk and a major lateral branch. Bark inclusions tend to look like valleys and are mostly, almost exclusively found when you have codominancy, which I really don't see here on this tree. And then last but not least, trunks and or major branches are touching, and that too is not applicable here. So we are still at a Florida grade number 1. We have not downgraded the tree any further, and we are ready for step 7, our last step, where we grade the root ball. 2 parts to this. 1, the depth of planting. The first order root, the major structural anchoring root, in this case is right at grade. You can zero in on that, you can see it. That has to be within the top 2 inches. And that's why I said to bring the shovel. If you can't find it, if the trunk doesn't have flare to it, which this one does, then you would maybe want to excavate and see, because a lot of times these trees come in and they're planted way deep. So if this first order anchor root, major anchor root, is at grade or slightly below, up to 2 inches down, you're good. And last but not least, we're looking for the presence of circling roots that circle around the periphery of the container or around the trunk and the top half of the root ball. If they're greater than 1/10 the diameter of the trunk and they circle more than 1/3 of the way around the trunk, anywhere in the top half, the tree automatically becomes a cull. And I'm not seeing that here. This looks like a very good root system. Not seeing any circling whatsoever, so we end up with a Florida number 1 Balnesia. And that's the simple grading procedure.